These are cold. We have a whole bunch of projects to get done today for preservation. So right now, actually, Mom and I were just out in the garden and cut the majority of the celery. And so she is here chopping celery. And this is just the first load. There is, I don't know if you can see out the window there, another load out there that I was in the middle of washing, but then it started pouring down rain. And this massive bowl is one that she has already cut up. So we need to get that put on something, which means I need to get these peaches that I peeled and cut up the other day and froze into bags and back in the freezer so I can have these trays to flash freeze the celery on. So we are going to start with peaches. So we are actually heading out of town here in a little bit, which is why I didn't exactly know what I wanted to do with all of my peaches. So that's why I just cut them all up and froze them. I actually still have an entire other box to do still. And they need to get done before we leave. So I'm probably just going to do the same thing. I didn't have any plans to can any of these just as like slices. So any of the recipes that I do want to do with these, I can do them from frozen just fine. So that is what I did. The second box of peaches wasn't quite ripe when I did these, which is why I didn't just do them all at the same time. So like I said, I do have a whole other box, about 22 pounds, because I got 2 of them, of peaches to peel and do something with. I do want to do a peach salsa, get a peach salsa canned, which I'm hoping to get done before I leave. I'm not sure that that's realistic in any way, shape, or form, but I'm going to try. And then I'm thinking I'll probably, like, especially these ones that I did actually quarter, I might try and freeze dry them, which is why I tried to keep them, I flash froze them so they could stay separated a little bit and easier to get onto the trays. But that will also happen once we get back. All right, gonna get these all back into the freezer and then we can get started on the celery. So we did already wash the celery, but it was pretty dirty because I had a major earwig issue with my celery this year, and they left all kinds of nastiness on the ends of these. So I just want to give them one more quick rinse before I freeze them. Actually, no, I should put these in my salad spinner so I can get more moisture off of them. That's a good idea. Oop, too much. All right. So you may recall that if you watched my earlier videos when we were planting our celery, that I planted two different varieties. Utah Tall, which is kind of the one you mostly see seeds for, is Utah Tall. It's what I planted last year. Last year my celery did not do well at all. And then I also had a variety called Tango. So Mom and I did a taste test and completely agreed that the Tango celery has a much stronger flavor to it. And it's not really, I wouldn't necessarily recommend it for fresh eating. So we are going to keep them separated and just use the Tango for things like broth and that sort of stuff. We are going to be making some peach salsa, I decided, with our peaches. So I need to grab some cilantro and a couple of peppers. So let's grab some cilantro. Only need about a half a cup. And then I technically need red peppers, but I don't have any. So I'm thinking I might grab some of my paprikas and use them as red peppers. They're not very red. Well, maybe I'll just grab another green pepper then. Yeah, no, it's not very red either. All right, I have a small green pepper already, so I'll just grab a second small one here. And I think we have enough peppers. Hot spicy peppers, I mean. So we should be good. Apparently I picked a nasturtium with my cilantro. And the first thing we need to do is get our peaches, our water boiling, so we can get our peaches in here and peeled. Also going to get our sink filled with cold water. Put the peaches in after they've been in the hot water. All right, just need to wait for the water to boil. And actually, while we are waiting for that, I have all of these beautiful cherry tomatoes that I am going to make into a marinated tomato. I saw Becky from Acre Homestead doing this, and it just sounds delicious. So I thought I would try it out. Some of these are a little overripe. I am finally getting cherry tomatoes off of our bushes, which is amazing. And these little guys right here are the Sun Gold, and they taste like candy, quite honestly. They are so amazing. I mean, they taste like a tomato, but I just, if you've never tried one, you should try one for sure. So good. Beautiful. Add just a little bit of fresh garlic. A little bit of this stuff goes a long way. This is the stuff we just picked up from the garden. So it is incredibly potent. And anytime you want to have fresh garlic but not be biting into big pieces of it, if you smash it like this with a little bit of salt, which just helps kind of make it into a paste, you get all of the flavor and none of the chunks. Add a little bit more salt here. And of course, a good amount of cracked brown pepper. Is there such a thing as brown pepper? Black pepper. Just making up things. And then just some good olive oil and red wine vinegar. All right, we're just going to, I'm actually going to let these sit on the counter here for a little bit, and then we'll taste them for seasoning, and then we will just store them in the fridge. They smell delicious. Our water is boiling. So we're just going to start putting our peaches in here for about 30 seconds. Oh, I forgot to put the little X's on the bottom. All right. You don't really need to, but it does seem to help a little bit. And then we're just putting them into the cold water in the sink to stop the cooking because we don't want them to actually cook. Just get the skins off. And there we have all of the peaches out of the hot water, and now we get to peel them. The fun part. Sometimes it goes really well, and other times you just want to strangle somebody. For the most part, these peaches, because they are pretty ripe, have been peeling fairly easily. I've definitely come across a couple that I just wanted to throw across the room. I have all of the peaches peeled and pitted. And I have about 4 pounds of them just kind of roughly chopped in here. And that we are going to make into peach butter. So basically a butter differs from jam in that it doesn't use pectin to thicken. It uses basically time heating to get thick. So, and it also doesn't thicken quite as much as a jam with pectin would. And this recipe is coming from the Ball Complete Book of Home Preserving, which is one of my favorites. And yeah, so all we need in there is, oh, I need a couple more peaches. I only put a little over 4 pounds. 4.5 pounds of peaches, a half a cup of water, and the grated zest and juice of 1 lemon, which actually will also help with the thickening. But let me put a couple more peaches in this guy. We are having quite the lightning and thunder show outside right now. And we're just going to let this cook down until the peaches are all nice and soft and have released their juices. Then we will add in the sugar. But I wanted to get this started right now because it's going to take probably 45 minutes or so to completely cook down. Yeah, it doesn't actually even give a time, just until mixture thickens and holds its shape on a spoon. So my experience with making butters is it takes 45 minutes,
to an hour to an hour and a half, depending upon how much liquid is in the fruit that you are making into a butter. So, get that going, and then let's see, this other one that we are going to make is a peach ale mustard, which sounds delicious. And this actually has to sit overnight, so I want to get that going as well. And this one, we actually are going to bake the peaches until they are soft. So for this one, they actually have you peeling them after they've roasted, but since we've already peeled them, I'm just not going to worry about that. So all right, that is a little over 2.5 pounds. It's funny, the book says that's 10 peaches, but this is like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 peaches. Guess some of my peaches are big. And we need to bake them for 30 minutes or until peaches are very soft and lightly browned. All right, and this recipe is actually coming from the other ball canning book, the All New Ball Book of Canning and Preserving. And I'll put links to these books in the description. They are fantastic canning books. And then, last but not least, we are going to do this peach salsa. So for this, we need 6 cups of pitted peeled peaches that are chopped. So let us get those chopped up and going. And this actually recommends starting with your vinegar in your pan and chopping your peaches into the vinegar and like coating them so that they don't get browned up. It does also say to use like you not even quite ripe. Oh no, that's not this one. The other recipe I had for this said to use like almost hard peaches. So I am going to try and use my firmer ones because you want this shape to hold up, I think. The other recipe for this peach salsa that I have from the other ball book is very similar, but it has a lot more sweetener in it. This one only has 2 tablespoons of honey, and that one had a whole cup of sugar. So I wanted something that wasn't super sweet like that, which is why I'm going with this one. Almost enough of the red onion, but we need another 1/4 cup. And things like onions and peppers, you can use interchangeably when they call for a certain color. You know, the other thing that I need to get going actually is my canner, get it heating and get my jars ready. So I'm going to go grab that stuff really quick and get it going and then finish chopping up the stuff for the salsa. All right, we have the canner heating with the jars in the water cleaned up. Let's get back to chopping. So we need some jalapenos and some, it says red bell pepper. I don't have any red bell pepper, so we are just going to make do with green. I also don't have, well, I do have 4 jalapenos, but I already had a whole bunch of serranos picked, so I am just going to use those. I am, however, going to put a pair of gloves on. There's no reason to, well, a glove, burn my fingers. or some other part of me. I always forget to make use of bench scrapers, but they are excellent for this kind of thing. Alright, I actually think I probably just need this one, because this pepper's pretty big. I'm very impressed that this came out of my garden, actually. This seems like far too little garlic, but garlic, unfortunately, is not something I'm comfortable playing around with in canning recipes. So, as in adding more of it than is called for. Since this is a tested recipe, I'm going to stick with the rules. Garlic is not a high acid food. And in fact, garlic, you can't just can straight garlic, even pressure can it. So just not one of those things you want to mess around with. All right, and then we need honey, cumin, and cayenne. I'm actually going to turn these guys off for a minute while we finish this up. And I'm actually not going to put the cayenne in because serranos tend to be much spicier than jalapenos. And I just want to wait to taste this until I know that it actually needs the extra spice. All right, so we're just gonna mix this all up. And bring to a boil over medium heat, stirring constantly. Reduce heat, boil gently until slightly thickened, about 5 minutes. All right. We need to actually get the immersion blender out and get this all zhuzhed up and add the sugar to it so it can continue cooking down. So let's do that first before I get this boiling, since we have to continuously stir it. So I didn't blend it until it was like completely smooth. There definitely are still some chunks in there, which is what you want. Maybe a little bit more chunky than I want, but that's okay. It needs to cook down, like I said, for quite a bit longer here. And we are going to add in 3 cups of sugar. And then, so the recipe calls for 4 cups of sugar, but it has a variation where after you've cooked this down for a while, it started getting thick, you can add a cup of a liqueur of some kind. It recommended like an amaretto liqueur, but I don't have that. Or a sweet wine, it also did say that. I do have sweet wines, but I thought that I would use this elderflower liqueur, which I can't even begin to describe the flavor of it, but I think it would go really well with the peaches. I think I actually might zhuzh this a little bit more. So I just realized that oddly this recipe didn't call for any salt, so I did add some because it just seems odd that there wouldn't be salt in it. And salt is one of those ingredients that you can add or subtract from a recipe, and it still remains a safe canning recipe. It is just used as flavoring. It's not part of the preservation process. And I actually added a little bit of salt to our butter as well, which I know sounds like an odd thing, but even with sweet things. It's not going to taste salty, but that little bit of salt will just enhance the flavor of your sweet stuff as well. So these peaches actually weren't super juicy. So once this comes to a boil, I really don't want it to thicken up all that much more than what it already is. So I'm probably just going to get it into the jars. I'm actually thinking I should probably taste this, since I did want to taste for heat in this. Oh! It does not need any more heat. Oh, I'm really glad I did not put that cayenne in there. Has excellent flavor, although it does need still a little more salt. Again, just super odd to me that it didn't call for any salt at all. I also think it will probably taste a lot better when it's cooler. Because right now my mouth's on fire. Alright, so we are just going to get this into jars here. And we want a 1/4 inch headspace. Just want to get these deep bubbles here. So I am doing a pint jar, and I am going to can it, but I'm going to put it right into the fridge after it's done canning, because this recipe only gives time for making 1/2 pint jars, and yeah, 8 ounce. And you can always go down in size. So like if it said that you could make pint jars out of it, you could make 1/2 pint jars. You'd still need to process it for the same time as the larger amount, the larger jar. But you can't go up in size if the recipe doesn't say that you can make it in a larger size. So I am going to can it just because I want it to have the same kind of basically cooking time, but then I'll just store it in the fridge and we will eat it right away, because I'm planning to bring these with us on our trip, because we are going to see family and we're going to have a taco night. And there's going to be a lot of us, so I think this would be an excellent addition. Oops. Going to put the lid on here, bring it up to a boil, and if you are below 1,000 feet, you'd only process this for 15 minutes, but since we are at 5, we are going to do it for 25. Rule of thumb, if it doesn't specifically say, is you want to add about 10 minutes at above 5,000 feet, or 5,000 feet and above. So we are going to do 25 minutes as soon as this comes to a boil. For the rest, I believe that we can get our peaches out of the oven now, and our peach butter is looking great, but still definitely has a ways to go. So we might just let this cook for a while tonight and then come back to it tomorrow, since we have to come back to the mustard tomorrow anyway to can that, because it has to sit overnight. But let's get the peaches out of the oven, get them chopped up, and the rest of the ingredients together for that. And then I'm going to go have a glass of wine. Those look perfect, if a little warm. is okay. All right, we are just going to give these a chalk up here. I think we want it to be fairly fine. I'm gonna have to look and see if it goes through a blender at some point. Yeah, it's gonna go into a blender, so we don't need to get it super finely chopped. All right, so we're supposed to have 2/3 of a cup of white balsamic, and I am almost positive I don't have that much. So we are going to make the rest just white wine vinegar. And we are going to bring this to a boil, so go ahead and get the heat going here. And then a 1/2 cup of maple syrup. And a 1/2 cup of dry mustard powder. That is too much. And 2 tablespoons of brown mustard seeds. Some salt. And it says a bottle of ale, and this isn't ale, it is porter, but I'm going to go with it because that's what I have. All right, and then we're just going to bring this to a boil. And then simmer it for 10 minutes. Then we're going to remove it from the heat and let it cool and let it set overnight covered. And then we will come back to it in the morning. Well, actually, afternoon, because I have to work in the morning. So I think our peach butter here is a good consistency to go ahead and add our liqueur. Making a mess. And then we will let this continue cooking down until it is the right thickness. We are back at it. I am getting my peach butter heated back up. It does need to go for a little bit longer. I pretty much turned it off as soon as the peach salsa was done, which actually, let me show you. It definitely would be much prettier. I mean, hide my face so it'll focus on it. If I had been able to use red peppers, I think it would be really, really pretty, but I think it looks great. So those are all done. And our, let me show you what our mustard is looking like here. So nothing exciting at the moment. We just need to, I'm going to get the immersion blender out and get this blended up really smoothly. Next, this is cold at this point. Once this is blended up, we will get it heating back up again as well. All right. I believe that is as smooth as it's going to get. So let's get the heat back on this as well. And I believe that we want this to cook down a bit because it is still pretty runny. It's not really mustard consistency. But let's look at the actual recipe and see what it says. Bring to a boil, stirring often. That's all it says. And then it says ladle hot mustard into the mixture. All right, well, we are going to let it come up to a boil and probably let it go for a little bit so it does thicken up, and then we'll get it into jars. Actually, I do want to taste this before it gets heated up. That's good. I think though it needs a little bit more salt. Yeah, it definitely needs a little bit more salt. While we are waiting for these two things to thicken up, I am going to get ready my final project that I want to get done, which is I need to get a bunch of cucumbers pickled. And we are just going to do a refrigerator pickle for these guys. So our brine is going to be 2 cups of white vinegar, a cup of water, a tablespoon of salt, and we want to get that boiling. It's possible I will need to make more than that, but for now we will start with that. And we just want to get our little guys here cleaned up. So as you can see, I kind of have a hodgepodge of sizes. So these big ones I am going to slice, I think. And then the little ones I will leave whole. I really wish I could have picked more of these today, but it has been a nasty, nasty day outside, rainy and cold. And I just didn't feel like standing out in the garden in that weather picking cucumbers. These aren't necessarily dirty, but they are a little spiny, some of them, so I want to make sure I get those guys off. Actually, this guy is a slicing cucumber, not a pickling cucumber. So it will go back into the fridge. Our jam is just about done, or our butter, peach butter. And I think I'm happy with the thickness of our mustard now. Still a little bit on the loose side, but I'm hoping maybe once it cools down that it will thicken up a little bit more too. But if I keep trying to boil it down, I'm going to have issues with it starting to burn onto the bottom, scorch, so I don't want to do that. So we will just get it jarred up. All right, so we're just gonna let these set in the hot water until our peach butter is ready to go. And then we will, once we jar that up and get them in there, then we will start the load all together. I believe, let me check the peach butter processing time. So yeah, they actually have the same processing time. It's 10 minutes for both of them. So we'll have to do 20, but it'll be perfect. Yes, it is definitely ready. So I just put a little dab of the peach butter on this plate, put it in the fridge. It is now cool, and as you can see, it is barely moving. So that means it is ready to go. All right, I do have more jam left, but these last 3 jars are not going to fit into the canner this go round. In fact, I believe I'm not even going to get the last one I already have filled in here. Nope, that's gonna be it. All right. So we will just let this come to a boil. And the rest of these, once I get them filled up, I will stick them actually in the oven on just keep warm, because I don't want them to cool all the way down and then have to either take out all of the hot water and reheat everything in the canner, or risk my jars breaking, which I definitely do not want to do. All right, let's get back to our pickles. I will clean up the mess over here as soon as I'm done with this. All right, first thing we are going to do is put our seasonings in the jar. And whoop. That is some celery seed, coriander seed, and you could just use pickling spice if you want to, but I kind of prefer you doing my own mixture. I'm just going to get a bunch of these little tiny garlics peeled up here. And I'm going to put a couple of serrano chunks in each of them. And now we can start putting in our pickles. I am going to cut off the blossom ends. Actually, I'm going to cut off both ends, I think. And since these are going to be refrigerator pickles, we don't have to worry about headspace or anything like that. Okay, I almost forgot the most important part about dill pickles. The dill. Fairly certain there's not going to be enough brine for all of these. And in the meantime, let's get these sliced up. And these guys can just go back in here until I decide what to do with them. We probably will just eat these guys fresh. Our first batch of mustard and jam is done. Here is our mustard and our jam. All right, and I'm just going to grab the 4 that we have in the oven waiting nice and warm, get it in here, and get this going. I'm going to need to add some water to this guy. And once again, just put this on and let it come up to a boil. So I would say we did pretty darn good. So that's our peach butter, our mustard, and our peach salsa. and then our pickles. Oh, and I forgot that we did our tomatoes as well, and we should give them a quick taste test. All right, here we go. Oh my goodness, that is so good. It's kind of like a vinaigrette, basically. I mean, it is, right? It's oil and vinegar. But the tomatoes and the garlic, oh, they just all meld together so gorgeously. Highly recommend trying this. So, so good. And you know, you could do this with like balsamic vinegar or white balsamic vinegar. It would have a different flavor profile, obviously, but balsamic always goes really well with fresh tomatoes. So, oh, yum. This would be good on bread, like a toasted crostini kind of thing. Put it on eggs or a sandwich. So good. And there we have it. We just have to wait for these 4 guys to be done with the canning process. And then we are, oh wait, I forgot. I still have half a bowl of peaches in the fridge out in the garage. So I still need to do something with them, but it's highly likely at this point they're just going to get frozen. We are going to be leaving in 3 days, 4 days, and I have a lot of other stuff to get done in the meantime. So those are probably just going to get frozen. But, oh, and we also got all of that celery chopped and ready to go into the freeze dryer. So we got a lot accomplished in just 2 days. 2 evenings, really. So I'll see you next time. Bye.